What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Rantin Review Entertainment. This is a quick spoiler-free review of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which premieres this week. Maybe you'll see it today. Maybe you'll see it Friday when it is officially out in theaters. But I'm going to give you my initial thoughts on it, just so you can get an idea of what this movie's about and whether or not it's for you and it's something that you want to see. Now, I'll say first off, if you are a big Marvel fan, this absolutely is a must-see movie for you. There's a lot of stuff in it. If you are a fan of pretty much any comic book that's had Marvel, and not just the MCU Disney ones, the ones from Fox, the ones with the... Boy, I can't... Actually, I'm not going to go into it because it's going to spoil stuff. There's a lot of cameos in this movie, and there's two in particular that I was shocked to see. And again, if you've watched a lot of these movies over the course of the years, or you just watch comic book movies anyway, and you're familiar with some of the things about the backstage stuff about different studios owning different Marvel properties and old movies, you're gonna be pleasantly surprised in this movie. The storyline. The storyline, it was a little confusing at the beginning, but as we get to the middle part, you kind of understand what's going on at that point. And I will say, if you are a fan of WandaVision, which I was a huge fan of WandaVision, that's one of the best things Marvel's done, in my opinion, in the last 3 years, outside of the ending of the Infinity War and Endgame. And well, there's other stuff, but it's one of the, character-wise, I should say, WandaVision is one of the best things Marvel's ever done as far as building characters and really doing something really interesting with them. There's a little bit of that in here, obviously, because Wanda's in this as a Scarlet Witch. Doctor Strange actually has I like the story arc for him in this movie more than I liked in the original Doctor Strange movie. And this movie is a lot more of the kind of Doctor Strange that I expected from the first movie. It's when I heard they were doing Doctor Strange, this is what I envisioned that they would be doing with him. But of course, the first movie, you're not going to go this crazy with it in the beginning. You're going to, keep it kind of tame. And this, compared to the first movie, they go way out there, man. This thing is trippy as hell. Of course, we have the multiverse stuff that's involved in this. America Chavez, who is the young lady that they kind of under promoted in the trailers, but a lot of people know that she's in here. She was fantastic. Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda, man, the performance was, not only was her comic book actiony stuff performance is good, but the real, I mean, dude, I was getting a little sad near the end of this movie, with what Wanda goes through in this film. It can be pretty heart-wrenching, especially if you watch WandaVision and love WandaVision. There's some real tear-jerking stuff in here. Benedict Wong as Wong in this movie has a lot more to do than he has in anything he's been in Marvel before. Fortunately, he is actually on his own side quest that is actually a big part of the movie, in the middle part in particular. And he's not just sidekick guy. He actually is. There's a running joke through the movie between him and Strange, how things kind of change with their dynamic because of the snap with Thanos. A lot of references to what happened in Endgame with Thanos and Doctor Strange saying it's the that was the one way. There's only one way to have solved that problem and defeat Thanos. So there's a lot of questions about that. Rachel Mcadams has a little bit more to do in this film, and I like the fact that I like what they did with her character, although I still wanted to see more of her in this movie. I think, yes, it's better that they did more with her, but that character is, she's still underutilized in here as being anything more than Steven's love interest. Now, she's a little bit more than that in this movie, but not too much. And they started going in a direction with it that I thought was going to be cool, and they didn't quite flesh it out. I'm hoping that, because it's kind of apparent, there's things that in this movie that say that America Chavez is either going to have her own Disney, I think it's a Disney Plus series she might have, or a movie, whatever it is. There's storylines with her that they're definitely going to be doing in the future. I hope Rachel McAdams' character I hope she's part of that, as a large part of that in the future, because there's so much more she can do. And obviously Rachel McAdams is a fantastic actress. Lots of other stuff. I can't get into any more spoilers, but I will say again, if you're a big Marvel fan, you're going to enjoy this. If you're a fan of big, fast-paced action stuff, you're going to like this. I will say that, for me, and people notice, some of y'all know that I write novels and stuff. This felt like something that somebody pulled out of my head from one of my novels and made it into a film. I'm just like, yep, do that. Yep, this is the kind of shit that I write, right? So there is that. It might be too much for the general audience, though. It might be too weird. There's some pretty gruesome kills. There's some legitimate scares, and of course, it's all because of Sam Raimi, famous for Evil Dead and the original Spider-Man Tobey Maguire trilogy. There's a lot of Sam Raimi stuff in this movie. When people have said this before, that they let him, and usual times with Marvel, their directors kind of get hamstrung by having to adhere to the larger story of Marvel. But in this movie, this is definitely a Sam Raimi movie, which is, again, and I've said this before on the channel, I always laugh when people think that Marvel movies are all the same thing. I'm like, dude, they are not the same thing. And this is definitely something new for Marvel. It is a straight up metaphysical, dark horror fantasy film. There's some action and adventure in it, but it is a dark horror fantasy film. Which you don't see too much of. And I was happy to see that they balanced out the elements well for the most part. There were some places where the pacing was a little off. There's some lines and dialogue that's not quite good. The quips aren't as good in this movie as they are in certain other Marvel movies. And so stay for the post-credit scene. If you're a big, huge fan, stay for the scene all the way at the end of the credits. If you're not, you don't really need to stay for that one, I would say. But the mid-credit scene, that one, that's a deep cut for comic book fans, and it's also leading into where I think they're going with the MCU. And we're going to be talking about that. We're finally starting to see what the direction and the focus of Phase 4 is going to be, because Phase 4 has been all over the place. We've had the stuff with Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Hawkeye, which is in one part of our universe, and then there's all this multi-world stuff, and then there's all the God stuff with Moon Knight, and Thor and the space stuff with Thor, that's also going to be dealing with God. So we've got the multiverse, the changing of what's going on the ground with the Winter Soldier, the new Captain America, Hawkeye, the new Black Widow, and all that stuff. And then we've got the whole stuff about the gods that involves Thor and Moon Knight and all that stuff. So there's these three different parts of the MCU right now in Phase 4, and I'm not quite sure how they all fit together, but I think we're getting there. So I'll talk about that in the spoiler review later on. But if you guys have any questions, if you had any thoughts on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, if you've seen it or you're not going to see it, what do you think about it? Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until then, I will see you guys pretty soon. I will be doing a Moon Knight full series review. I'm watching the last episode of Moon Knight today because I've been very busy. I haven't been able to watch it yet. So as soon as I'm done posting this, I'm going to be watching the last episode of Moon Knight, and then I will be doing a review about my thoughts about Moon Knight. But until then, you guys have a nice weekend. Be safe out there, and I'll see you again soon.
Try not to break the multiverse, Stephen.
This is the only way.
Wait!